dear religious leaders all over our country of all faith traditions, dear Kenyans, when the corona pandemic hit our country, we came together as religious leaders from all faith traditions, invited by our President Uhuru Kenyatta, and raised our hearts to God in prayer, asking for His protection and wisdom so as to know how to face up to this threat to our people and to our nation. You will recall that the entire nation came to a standstill as we received the blessings from the religious leaders to courageously face this new enemy that had already devastated other nations. In order to contain its spread, following the protocols of WHO, containment measures were instituted, including the closing of all gatherings, including public worship. This was a big blow to all of us, but our Kenyans have faithfully adhered to this requirement in spite of our great desire to come together in our places of worship. Yesterday, the 6th of July 2020, President Uhuru Kenyatta released the new norms going forward, in which many lockdown restrictions or containment measures were lifted and the responsibility given to institutions and individuals in order to live up to the indications and measures that have been laid down by the Ministry of Health to contain the COVID-19 and reduce the spread of the infection. We thank the President who appointed this Interfaith Council in order to prepare guidelines and assist all faiths open the places of public worship without endangering the congregants or favoring the spread of the virus. We have worked hard in order to prepare suitable guidelines that can apply across the board to all faith traditions. We did so first by consulting widely with a very huge base of religious leaders in 8 meetings we held on 24th June 2020 and collecting suggestions submitted earlier in other regional meetings. Besides listening to the views of how we can reassure safety in our congregational gatherings, we also sought the partnership and the leadership of all religious leaders in encouraging and pleading with our congregants and indeed all Kenyans to fully comply with the Ministry of Health directives, as only then can we keep our sisters and brothers, and especially our elderly, safe. Yesterday, the 6th of July 2020, we presented to His Excellency the President the guidelines for a phased reopening of public worship, together with the interim report of the Interfaith Council. The President, in his statement, referred in part to these guidelines. Further, he has asked this Interfaith Council to take up the task of sensitizing and publicizing these guidelines in order to allow resumption of public worship, and as he said, not later than 3 weeks from yesterday. We therefore wish to share with the Kenyans and our dear congregants of all faith traditions the plans that we propose in order to resume public worship within this framework. We are advising a pre-opening stage where we will open the places of public worship in the next few days while monitoring for the full phase reopening. This is in order to prepare our congregants for the public worship in the later phases. General reopening of places of public worship. The resumption of the public worship will be as per the following guidelines. 1. There must be sufficient stations of hand washing with soap or sanitization with alcohol-based sanitizers so that all congregants sanitize their hands before and after the gathering. 2. That all congregants must wear proper face masks over their mouth and nose throughout the congregational worship. 3. That the social distance of 1.5 meters between all congregants must be strictly observed at all times. 4. That the maximum number of congregants should not exceed 100 persons in this initial stage. 5. That we emphasize care and protection of the most vulnerable among the congregants due to age and other ailments. Consequently, children under the age of 13 years and persons over the age of 58 years are encouraged to keep at home in the first phases of reopening. 6. The time of duration of the congregational worship should not exceed 60 minutes. Other guidelines are also given on mitigating within the worship any other avenue of possible infection. I highlight those that are also included in our guidelines. 1. The regular cleaning and disinfection of the places of worship. 2. Care in avoiding all unnecessary contact within the worship. 3. Care in sanitizing the shared items within worship. 4. Special sanitization measures for all those presiding in the public worship. 5. Duration of the congregational gatherings to be minimized at the initial stages, as we have already said. 6. Where possible, thermal guns be used to detect those who may have indicators of illness or of COVID-19. 7. Collections and other activities that involve passing around items be rethought to avoid contact. The reopening of places of worship will follow 4 phases, which will depend on the situation of the infection trend and spread that is generally indicated by the daily positive cases reported and the levels of compliance in our congregational gatherings. After due considerations, therefore, the Interfaith Council now advises that the places of public worship may be reopened in the next 7 days from Tuesday, 14th July 2020, we advise that all the congregations should prepare themselves adequately for this phase. We therefore urge and plead with Kenyans that we open the places of worship in an orderly and prepared way. We must ensure the safety of each and every one of our congregants. The Interfaith Council will review and advise accordingly in the next 3 weeks. So this opening on 14th July 2020 will be strictly in accordance to the indications we have just given. Planned sensitization of the Interfaith Council. We have planned together with a number of other religious leaders to visit the counties to share and get feedback of these guidelines in order to accommodate new ideas and reassure all religious leaders are well versed with them. We in the Interfaith Council believe that we as religious leaders now have the key to more effectively fight the COVID-19 monster by taking the front line in the advocacy and spiritual persuasion of our congregants to take up the weapons we have at hand to fight it. These are the wearing of face masks at all times while in public, the constant washing our hands with soap and water, the strict adherence to social distancing, and keeping away from any interaction if one is sick or vulnerable or having the symptoms of COVID-19. This is why we plead with all our religious leaders to take up this role that has been given us at this moment. Self-regulating monitoring of compliance. In our guidelines, we are advising the formation of interfaith committees at the sub-county and county levels to help oversee the compliance with the guidelines in all places of worship. We have encouraged self-regulation, and we expect responsibility of the faith leaders in ensuring this is followed for the safety of our people and the effective fighting of the pandemic. Each congregation is advised to form a COVID-19 response committee to help implement and oversee these guidelines. Conclusion. We are humbly inviting all religious leaders to take up this moment that can save our citizens, and that together we can safely manage the return to our places of worship. Please, let us not rush without preparations. We all understand the great eagerness and longing we have, but with some patience and preparations, we can safely reunite soonest possible in our places of worship. Finally, we must remember that the cure to this pandemic and the real solutions lie in our prayers to the Almighty God. we as members of the Interfaith Council and as religious leaders urge you to increase your prayers for the end of this pandemic, especially now that we are witnessing a rise in the number of cases. May God be with each one of us, with the COVID-19 victims, and with our nation. Let us walk together towards the holy place. Signed by me, Archbishop Anthony Muheria, the Chairman of Interfaith Council, on behalf of all the members here present.